Welcome to the news report for day 331 of the war in Ukraine. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to The Account. Today, the latest Ramstein meeting has taken place. We will take a look at the latest news regarding the outcome. Since the Ramstein segment will be quite long, I will divide it into the meeting part and the announced aid afterwards. There is another article I want to point out as well. It is a harrowing account of Lisa and her 10-year-old daughter and the fight for Mariupol through their eyes. Otherwise, nothing major has happened today, so we will go over the usual minor updates grouped into the situation inside Ukraine, which includes a few of the latest warnings regarding possible future Russian action, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, with articles about the latest deployment of air defenses around Moscow and an update to the Wagner finances, and the international developments. Here we have several updates on the latest aid packages for Ukraine by various countries as well. First though, the flashpoints along the front. Svatove. Russia has stepped up its assault on Novoselivsk in a bid to push back a Ukrainian advance. So far all attempts have been repelled. Crimea. We don't have much news coming out of Crimea, however the Ukrainian General Staff reported a shelling in the area of Holikove tonight, which is behind the supposed front line. Bakhmut. Claims of the capture of Klishchivka by Russian forces cannot be verified. No evidence was provided so far. Consider the settlement contested for now. Videos shared on social media show Russian forces being shelled at the southern end of Klishchivka. We will have to wait for confirmation, however the most important part about the settlement is the hill west of it where the Ukrainian fortifications are located. Orikhiv. Yesterday in the evening, Russian sources claimed a massive offensive had started in Zaporizhia. Claims were made that several settlements were captured, including Lobkove, which was marked as Russian for a while now. Personally, I believe the settlements were in a grey zone before, and during the Russian attack they simply declared them as occupied, even though nothing really happened. Videos shared on social media show Ukrainian precision artillery destroying Russian vehicles and personnel. Russian propaganda channels use the same video to proclaim a great advance and point out low-intensity artillery by the Ukrainian side. Today's highlighted article is once again published by the Ukrainska Pravda and is titled "Our Kids Draw Torn Up Russian Flags", a chronicle of besieged Mariupol. This is the story of Lisa and her 10-year-old daughter and how the battle for Mariupol unfolded through their eyes. On February 24th and 25th, explosions could only be heard from the left bank far away. Residents of the right bank, like Lisa, did not worry too much. However, on the evening of February 26th, Russia started attacking the right bank and their peaceful lives came to an abrupt end. This is Lisa's story in her own words. Please check it out. And to start off the news segment, the latest updates on the Ramstein meeting. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III has convened the 8th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. This is a decisive moment for Ukraine and a decisive decade for the world, the Defense Secretary said. He noted that Russia is regrouping, recruiting, and trying to re-equip. It is not a moment to slow down, it is time to dig deep. He noted that Russia is beginning to run out of ammunition, suffering massive manpower losses at the front, and turning to its few remaining partners for help. But even Iran and North Korea are unwilling to admit that they are providing Russia with weapons. The most important question for the meeting was, will Ukraine get Western tanks? The answer sadly continues to be no. No agreement was reached this time, however Boris Pistorius, the Federal Minister of Defense of Germany, has instructed his ministry for the day that may come. The Polish foreign minister criticized the situation, saying, "Ukrainian blood is shed for real. This is the price of hesitation over Leopard deliveries. We need action now." However, according to Alexei Resnikov, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, some progress was made. Ukrainian soldiers will start training on Leopard tanks, even though the decision to supply them is still pending. President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke via video link at the opening of the Ramstein meeting. In his speech, he called on the allies to decide on the supply of F-16 fighter jets and long-range missiles to Ukraine at the next meeting. Ramstein. "Not everything was successful, but we definitely became stronger," Zelensky said in a video message. While not everything that was negotiated can be made public, Ukraine would still have to fight for modern tanks, though. But in general, today's results at Ramstein will strengthen Ukrainian resilience. You can find a transcript in the Ukrinform article. During the Ramstein meeting, General Mark Milley, USA chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has said that it will be difficult for Ukraine to militarily eject Russian forces from every inch of occupied territory this year. And now a look at everything that was promised to Ukraine in the aftermath of the Ramstein meeting. Ukraine will receive 2 Patriot air defense missile system launchers from the Netherlands. 65 Dutch servicemen will also train about 400 Ukrainian soldiers to operate the systems. According to its Ministry of Defense, Poland will deliver infantry fighting vehicles and T-72 tanks to Ukraine. Boris Pistorius, the Federal Minister of Defense of Germany, has announced a spring package of military aid to Ukraine worth more than €1 billion. The package will include 40 Marder infantry fighting vehicles, 7 Gepard anti-aircraft self-propelled artillery systems, additional guided missiles for the IRIS-T anti-aircraft missile system, and another IRIS-T unit. According to Lloyd Austin, United States Secretary of Defense, Canada has already purchased the NASAM system and associated munitions for Ukraine. Before the meeting, Slovakia and the Czech Republic indicated they are willing to forego the Leopard 2 tanks promised to them under the Ringtausch program and instead have them delivered directly to Ukraine. Portugal will provide Ukraine with 14 M113 armored personnel carriers, 8 high-power generators, additional 120mm ammunition, and 2 tons of medical and sanitary equipment. Jens Stoltenberg, Secretary-General of NATO, has welcomed the announced aid and believes it will not only allow Ukraine to defend itself, but even to advance. Moving on to the latest news out of Ukraine. President Zelensky stressed the importance for Western tanks, saying he is convinced they would further undermine Russian morale. According to the head of the president's office, Andriy Yermak, it will not be possible for anyone to pressure Ukraine on the Crimea and Donbas issue. Victory for Ukraine is the restoration of its internationally recognized borders. During the past days, as part of the joint military exercise between Russia and Belarus, MiG-31K fighter jets capable of carrying Kinzhal hypersonic missiles continue to take off. Ukrainian air sirens sound every time as there is a threat of a possible missile attack by Russia. Additionally, the head of the Joint Coordination Press Center of Operational Command South, Natalia Humenyuk, has warned that a possible missile strike from the Black Sea remains a threat. Russia currently has 11 warships on combat duty, 6 of them are missile carriers with up to 40 caliber cruise missiles. William Burns, director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency CIA, has paid an unannounced visit to Ukraine last week, warning President Zelensky about what to expect from Russia in the near future. And now for the updates out of the occupied territories. Russia has begun to transfer additional equipment and personnel in the Donetsk direction from Berdyansk through Mariupol. In order to avoid being filmed, the convoys travel at night during the curfew. A look at the latest news out of Russia and Belarus. Russia has started to literally put Pantsir S-1 anti-air systems on top of buildings throughout Moscow. Videos and photos published on social media show the process, with one iconic photo showing a system on top of the Russian Ministry of Defense. Air defense systems have also been installed near the residence of Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the President's Office of Ukraine, has sarcastically voiced his surprise at the news of additional air defenses being deployed in Russia. He mockingly asked, "Doesn't Lavrov want to talk again about international humanitarian law and Russian air defense in residential areas?" According to a report published by Politico, the Wagner Group is expanding its mining projects in Africa to increase its finances. It is suggested the group might see their profits rise to almost $1 billion. Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of the Chechen Republic, said Muslim clerics are being trained for the war in Ukraine to make a significant contribution to the victory of our state over the servants of Satan. The first group already received training at the Russian Special Forces University in Chechnya. And finally, to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. The Dutch government will consider providing Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets if Kyiv asks for them, according to the country's foreign minister Wopke Hoekstra. The Netherlands, although not able to send any themselves, would also be open to pay for Leopard 2 tanks to be delivered to Ukraine. Finnish President Sauli Niinistö has approved a proposal for a military aid package to Ukraine worth more than 400 million euros. Finland will supply heavy artillery and munition, however further details have been withheld due to security reasons. The delivery of some of these weapons was made possible by bilateral cooperation between Finland and Sweden. Some British officials allegedly expressed readiness to supply long-range missile systems similar to the US Army tactical missile system to Ukraine. This would be in line with London's more forward-leaning attitude toward military support for the country. According to a representative of the German government, Poland could send Leopard 2 tanks without permission. However, he noted that Berlin does not yet have any information about an official request from Warsaw. The US is advising Ukraine to postpone a planned massive offensive on Russian forces and only start it after receiving the latest promised weapon shipments and getting its troops trained to use them. General Mark Milley stated he believes Russia suffered significant losses, which he estimates at over 100,000. He made the comments after the Ramstein meeting. Let's move on to the intelligence report segment, starting with the UK Ministry of Defence. On December 27, 2022, the Russian Unified State Register showed that the proxy paramilitary Wagner group had formally registered as a legal entity. The group declared their core activity as management consultancy. No mention was made of combat services. It is not yet clear to what extent the PMC Wagner Center entity will be used to administer Wagner's paramilitary activity. Private military companies, PMCs, remain illegal in Russia despite protracted discussion about reforming the law. Wagner's owner Yevgeny Prigozhin has likely partially funded the organization via inflated government contracts awarded to his other companies. The registration continues the remarkably rapid development of the traditionally opaque group's public profile. Prigozhin only admitted to founding Wagner in September 2022. In October 2022, it opened a glossy HQ in St. Petersburg. Wagner almost certainly now commands up to 50,000 fighters in Ukraine and has become a key component of the Ukraine campaign. The registration likely aims to maximize Prigozhin's commercial gain and to further legitimize the increasingly high-profile organization. Now for the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The researchers predict that a Russian attack on Ukraine from Belarus is more likely towards the end of 2023, considering the current situation. They argue that Russian forces lack the required command and control structures necessary for an attack in the near future. Meanwhile, Russian military bloggers continue to criticize a possible attack plan from the territory of Belarus. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has so far resisted Russian pressure to join in hostilities and is framing Belarus as a sovereign state. The Institute points out that this is consistent with Lukashenko's long-standing effort to avoid ceding Belarusian sovereignty to the Kremlin-dominated Union State structure. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The enemy does not abandon its intention to destroy the critical infrastructure of our country and attack civilian objects and homes of the civilian population, thereby violating the norms of international humanitarian law and laws and customs of warfare. The enemy does not give up its plans of invasion. The enemy conducts offensive operations in the Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Zaporizhia directions and increases the intensity of the use of aviation. The enemy is defending in the Kupiansk, Liman, Novopavlovsk and Kherson directions. The Republic of Belarus continues to provide comprehensive support to Russian aggression. In addition to the joint exercises of the Air and Space Forces of the Russian Federation and the Air Force and Air Defense Forces of the Republic of Belarus, the training of Russian units continues on the territory of Belarus. The enemy is intensifying regime measures in the temporarily occupied territories of the Zaporizhia region. In particular, in the city of Melitopol, it was announced that it will be forbidden to cross the checkpoints around the settlement starting March 1 without special passes, which can be obtained at the so-called commandant's office only after providing personal data. Mobilization continues in the temporarily occupied territory of the Luhansk region. Thus, the occupation administration of Alchevsk has prepared regular lists to replenish the losses in manpower of the Russian invaders, in particular at the expense of employees of the so-called Ministry of Emergency Situations. That concludes today's news report. In case you are interested in one of the articles and want more details, you can find links in the description. Thank you for taking the time to tune in, and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.